Welcome to the deep dive.
Hello.
So you've sent us quite a bit of source material asking for a deep dive into some pretty significant claims around the FBI right now.
That's right. We're looking specifically at excerpts from a YouTube video transcript, his Fox News channel, featuring former FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino.
Okay. And our goal today, our mission, is really to unpack the key points from his perspective in that interview.
Exactly. What he said about FBI priorities, those big ongoing investigations, and his take on the agency's past and future.
And it's really important we stress this up front. We're presenting the viewpoints and information just as he shared them in this source.
Absolutely. We're just guiding you through his claims here.
Okay, let's jump in. The conversation kicks off almost immediately with what the source calls a fundamental challenge for the FBI. Resources. Manpower.
Yeah, he uses this phrase, manpower triage. It really paints a picture of strain, doesn't it?
Triage, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're stretched so thin they have to make these really tough calls on where to focus. And he clarifies, even with that pressure, the absolute top priority, number one, is still counterterrorism.
Right. Preventing attacks, the boom, as he apparently puts it.
Yeah.
New York, D.C., those kinds of targets.
Exactly. But right underneath that, you've got other huge demands. Massive cyber threats, counterintelligence,
Okay.
state actors, that sort of thing.
And then, according to him, there's something else massively amplifying this resource challenge.
Yeah, he really emphasizes the impact of the sheer number of people crossing the southern border and sometimes the northern border, too.
And his claim is that this isn't just about numbers, but who is coming across.
Right. He says there are people here who want to do bad things. He gets quite specific.
Right.
Known terrorists, cartel members, drug dealers, people with, quote, horrific track records.
Wow. Okay, so the claim is this influx directly impacts FBI operations.
Massively, according to him. He says teams are working super early hours just trying to, find and remove these individuals.
While also trying to stop terror attacks and investigate other crimes. Exactly. All at the same time. And he puts a number on it, which is striking.
What was that?
He claims 1 million man-hours spent just on immigration-related tasks, finding these individuals he terms illegals.
1 million man-hours. That really frames the scale of the challenge from his perspective.
It does. It suggests this massive drain on resources that maybe wasn't anticipated, pulling from those other core missions.
So a picture of an agency really juggling, based on this source, traditional threats, new pressures like the border.
Yeah, a very complex balancing act.
Okay, so building on that idea of how the FBI operates, or should operate, he then talks about their investigative stance, how they define things.
Yes, and he's very, very direct here. Almost blunt.
How so?
He says, look, it's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He really hits that word. And then adds, not the Federal Bureau of frickin' word games.
Okay, so no beating around the bush, linguistically speaking.
That's the message. Investigate based on evidence, period. He gives an example. Someone throws an incendiary device, yelling specific things. There are witnesses, video.
Right, pretty clear-cut actions.
He says, based on that evidence, they will investigate it as targeted violence and a terror attack. No more euphemism games, as he puts it.
So the takeaway here is a push for, well, directness. Calling things what they are based on the facts from his point of view.
I think so, yeah. Pushing back against what he seems to see as maybe past tendencies towards softer language or ambiguity around certain kinds of violence.
Got it. Okay, let's pivot. A topic a lot of you asked about, and the source addresses it. The Epstein file.
Ah, yes, Epstein. The interviewer even mentions hearing about, 10,000 hours of tapes?
Right. So what does the source, the former deputy director, say about the internal findings?
He makes a very definitive statement based on the evidence he says is in their files.
Which is
That the evidence clearly indicates that it was, in fact, suicide.
clearly indicates. And does he mention video?
He does. He confirms we do have video, but then immediately adds, it is not the greatest.
Not the greatest. Okay. What does it show, according to him?
He describes it as showing 12 hours of guards checking on Epstein.
Okay.
And crucially, nobody else seen in that specific bay or area, and nobody else inside the cell itself.
And he also mentioned other evidence coming out.
Yeah, he says other evidence will be released in coming weeks, and that should help make things pretty clear.
But he keeps coming back to the main point.
Forcefully. He repeats, nothing there in the file at all that indicates anything other than, in fact, a suicide.
But he adds a caveat, right?
Yes, an important one. He does say they're always open to looking at new information if it surfaces in the future on any of these cases. Standard procedure, really.
So the bottom line from this source, based on the internal file as he describes it, suicide. But the door's open if genuinely new evidence appears later.
That sums it up perfectly. A strong assertion about the current file, but acknowledging standard investigative practice.
Okay, another big one that came up. COVID-19 origins. The interviewer asks straight up if the truth is going to come out if the government lied.
And the source's answer, immediate, yes, you are, and we are all over that.
All over that. Strong words.
Very. He says he ordered that case looked into again right when he took the job.
And he sounds pretty confident about it.
Yeah, optimistic, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Expects to see action on that one shortly.
Interesting. So from his viewpoint, that COVID origins investigation is active, high priority, and he thinks results are coming relatively soon.
That's certainly the impression he gives, yes.
Okay. The conversation then took a turn towards another hot topic, handling classified information.
Right, it's specifically this perception of a double standard.
The interviewer brings it up directly, comparing the Mar-a-Lago case with how things were handled, potentially, with Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton.
Yes. And the source weighs in on this comparison.
What does he say? Why was action taken on Mar-a-Lago, according to him?
He cites human resources issues and finding, quote, really troubling items in their data.
And does he agree there was a double standard?
He does. He says based on his review of how the different types of cases were handled, it's fairly clear a double standard was applied.
And this led to some internal action?
Apparently, yes. He mentions doing an immediate scrub of holdings like a review or search for documents because of this assessment.
And this connects to former director Jim Comey.
It does. He specifically talks about finding documents that were not where they should have been relating to Comey.
And he doesn't sound happy about it.
Not at all. He calls them not good fluttering documents for Jim Comey. Strong language again.
And he links Comey to other issues, too.
Yeah, he calls Comey's actions a disgrace, specifically mentioning Crossfire Hurricane and other abominations. He frames it as the current team having to clean up the mess that Jim Comey created.
So the narrative from this source is very much one of inheriting problems, particularly around documents and past controversial probes like Crossfire Hurricane from previous leadership.
Exactly. It paints a picture of internal cleanup being necessary.
Okay, well, speaking of Crossfire Hurricane, the interviewer pushes on that. Was it based on false info, politically motivated, weaponization of the FBI, that whole cluster of concern?
Right, mentioning the dirty Russian disinformation idea, which the interviewer links to Hillary Clinton paying for it.
And the source's take on the Crossfire Hurricane documents.
He says they, and what they found in them, are among the most troubling things he's seen as part of this reform agenda he mentions.
Troubling. And he used a specific phrase about how they're getting these documents. Rolling production. What's that about?
Yeah. Rolling production.
Yeah.
He explains it's because they don't have it all. He says nobody gave it to us all.
Implying.
Well, he suggests the bad people kind of knew what they were doing. So the implication seems to be that information might have been deliberately withheld or scattered.
And based on what he has seen.
He says one specific document he read points to a large degree of malfeasance there. Malfeasance.
Okay, malfeasance, not just misfeasance. Why is that distinction important?
Well, misfeasance is like doing something lawful but doing it wrong. Malfeasance is doing something that's outright unlawful or wrong.
So he's alleging deliberate wrongdoing, not just mistakes.
That's what a large degree of malfeasance strongly suggests, yes, based on that document he read concerning Crossfire Hurricane.
So according to him, the internal review is uncovering serious, deliberate misconduct, and it's still unfolding.
That's the clear implication from his comments, yes.
The discussion also touched on public corruption, other legal cases, mentioning names like Letitia James, Nathan Wade, the DOJ itself, potential collusion, evidence destruction.
Right. On those specific cases, he says he can't comment right now. Doesn't want to get ahead of the DOJ.
Standard enough. But he makes a broader point about public corruption.
Oh, yes. A very broad, very strong statement. He says the FBI has a public corruption portfolio. And basically, if you're a corrupt politician, we're going to find you.
And he contrasts this with the past.
Explicitly. He says the days of selecting and putting ghetto partisan bias on and taking care of your friends, quote, those days are over.
Wow. So that's a pledge, from his standpoint, for impartiality and aggressive pursuit of corruption, no matter the political stripes.
That's definitely the image he's projecting. A determined, nonpartisan approach to high-level corruption moving forward.
Okay. And then finally, the interview covered a kind of lightning round of other controversial issues.
Yeah, a whole list. Cocaine at the White House, decisions about traditional Catholics, investigations involving peaceful abortion protesters, parents at school board meetings.
Things the interviewer framed as potential extreme abuses of power.
Right. And the source confirms he's aware and they're looking into them. I am on that. We are looking into that.
Did he single any out?
He did highlight the pipe bomb case. Said he ordered it looked into day one. Called it a serious case involving threats to Supreme Court justices, potential obstruction.
Okay. Anything else specific?
Also confirmed they're taking another look at the hazardous substance, the cocaine, found in the White House.
And he sounded confident about finding answers there?
Very. Stated flatly, we will get them. Meaning, find out who is responsible.
So the picture he paints is a wide-ranging review of many publicly debated incidents and past FBI actions by the current leadership he represents.
Yes, it suggests a broad effort underway to address these various criticisms and questions that have been swirling.
Which leads, naturally, to the wrap-up. The huge issue of public trust in the FBI.
Absolutely critical. And he acknowledges the need for the public to trust the agency again.
But then he says something quite striking.
Yeah, he kind of redefines it. He says, trust is for fools. Results matter. Results. Verify is all that matters.
Wow.
And adds, you don't have to trust me. I don't want anybody's trust.
So forget asking for faith. It's all about delivering tangible, verifiable outcomes. That's the measure.
That's exactly it. And he immediately follows that by laying out a really specific vision for what he expects the FBI to achieve, say, a year from now. A concrete picture of success as he sees it.
What does that picture look like?
He sees the FBI playing a key role in deporting, his words, hundreds of thousands of violent criminals, thwarting multiple terror plots, many they can't even talk about,
Okay.
running top-notch counterintelligence against threats like the CCP, taking action on drone threats, contributing to lower crime rates, a sealed border.
And he links this to specific leadership.
Yes, he mentions President Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Director Patel in that context.
And he loops back to the other issues.
He does. He ends that vision with a pledge that the FBI is on it for getting to the bottom of all those other things. Epstein, MLK, JFK files, the White House, cocaine, protesters, all of it.
So it's a vision hyper-focused on results, addressing past criticisms, tackling threats as he defines them, and positioning those results as the only real path to public confidence.
Exactly. It ties right back to that results matter, verify statement. These achievements, if they happen, are supposed to be the proof, the basis for renewed confidence from his perspective.
And well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the claims, the perspectives, the vision laid out by the former FBI deputy director in the source material you shared.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, from, manpower challenges and counterterrorism,
To specific inquiries like Epstein, COVID origins,
internal issues,